Welcome first-time listeners and returners to the Sports Deli, where everyone deserves a seat at the table. What about fucking Colin? Why does he not have a fucking job? Because he's still being whiteballed. Why is Tom not speaking out about that? He should be his biggest fucking ally. And he hasn't said one fucking thing. A lot of people that have come on this show, I don't know why, they've gotten some good fucking jobs afterwards. Jim Rome in the jungle. It's right here in the Sports Deli, baby. We got some good ass karma right here. Let's fucking go.
I love it.
Man.
I love it.
We hope you enjoy today's show, everyone.
All right, let's rock and roll. It's the first time I've wore my Bah Humbug hat. I just like to state that for the record, everybody, as we approach the holidays. We're so honored on the 16th day of National Ugly Sweater and National Underdog Day to welcome the first ever Anola, Manitoba, Canadian-born and raised player to ever reach baseball's major leagues, Koskie. Corey grew up on a farm and practiced baseball by hitting rocks with a wiffle ball bat. Played volleyball and ice hockey growing up, and even played volleyball in college briefly before starting his baseball journey at Des Moines Area Community College in Boone, Iowa. Population 12,469. In case you were wondering, Boone is 49.4 miles away from Des Moines, Iowa. He was drafted by the Minnesota Twins in the 26th round of the 1994 Major League Baseball draft and subsequently made his Major League debut on September 9th, 1998. He used to play in front of 45,000 fans and sign autographs with no problems at all, but after a concussion, his life changed forever, and today you will hear the rest of the story. He was featured nearly 7 years ago in the Players Tribune. He went to a chiropractor one day, and you won't believe how that changed his life forever. He owned a Planet Fitness. He was born the same day as Elon Musk, Don Baylor, and Mark Gracie, and the same year as Ichiro Suzuki. He's a boy dad of 4. He had a podcast. He's coached a lot of kids and a lot of games. And you can find him on Twitter. I don't know why I'm laughing. His shit was just funny to me at the end. You can find him on Twitter at CKONE47. And Corey, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today in the Sports Daily Podcast, where everyone deserves a seat at the table. And even though you play for the Twins and the Blue Jays as a lifelong Tiger fan, you're welcome here anytime, brother.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Hey, so listen, man. And for everyone looking for the video right now, Corey's driving, and we'll see him pop up here in a minute. For those of you listening, it's not an issue, but I love hearing people's stories. We've had Jay Billis on. I mentioned this a bunch of times from ESPN. Kenny Lofton, Shea Hillenbrand, Major League Baseball players. And, I always want to know about people's upbringings. Yours is not only different, as we are joined by a friend of yours, Jock Jones, here, popping in just to say hello to you. Jock, welcome.
Hey, Michael.
What's up, brother?
How you doing?
Good, man. Good. Just started the intro with Corey and just about to, ask him about his Canadian upbringing. But I know you wanted to pop in for a minute, just say what's up to your boy.
Yeah, turn that camera on so I can see your ugly face.
He's driving, man. So he's probably like 6 minutes away from being able to put the video on.
What up, CK?
Does Jock? What up? Does Jock have his video on?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there he is.
At the golf course. I love. Wait, where you at?
Living the life of luxury.
I'm trying to follow your lead. I'm trying to follow your lead.
Yeah, well, I ain't living the life of luxury. I ain't out there on the golf course.
Yeah, it's because you choose. It's because you choose not to be.
Yeah. How you shoot today?
I'm playing in about 30 or 40 minutes.
Oh, you're warming it up. Who you playing with?
A bunch of buddies of mine.
All right. What's your handicap at now?
6.
Besides your swing.
It's a 6. My swing's a 10. My handicap's a 6.
Well,
that's pretty good, man. That's respectable.
That's impressive.
Yeah, that is.
I just talked to your boy Eddie this morning.
I talked to him yesterday. His handicap ain't a 6.
No, 16.
he got like a Barkley swing or what?
Oh man, he's got a Happy Gilmore swing.
Oh my God, that is hilarious.
CK, how the boys doing?
They doing good.
Good, man.
As you
How
know, they
mama
grow
do-
fast.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
they
And my,
grow fast. Yeah.
listen, my daughter's gonna be a senior. My son, she'll be a senior in high school and junior graduated from college. So yeah, I know.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they just grow. What's you graduating with?
He graduated in the criminal justice major with a political science minor, I believe.
Oh, jeez. So is he working now?
Yeah, he's working. He works for a logistic company in Atlanta, and he just took the LSAT for the first time in November, and then he's going to take it again. He's trying to get into law school.
Oh, jeez.
Hey, somebody
Good for
needs to
him.
represent his dad when he gets in trouble. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Oh, shit. Welcome to the Jock Jones and Corey Koskie podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We are coming
Right.
to you live.
That's right. That's right. See, Michael, I told you I need to get on this podcast, dude, and do it more often.
Hey, I told you, bro, you can be my co-host anytime, man. I've invited only about 3 people out of the 160 guests that I've ever had, and you're
All right.
one of them. Yep,
I'm gonna take you up on it. But
absolutely.
not, yeah, man. I didn't want to hold you guys up. I just wanted to pop in and say hello, CK.
Oh, good to hear you. Good to hear you. Good to see you.
You too.
I'm just getting to a spot where I am, where I'm pulling over here and getting ready for the get front in line on the pickup line for school.
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
nice. That's
I got
what's
you.
up.
Yeah.
Jock, you have any questions for him? I mean, I know you know his story well and you know what he went through and everything, but anything that if you were like co-hosting today, what you would, or a quick rapid fire question, something that you would.
Just not just because I know him, right? Just the importance, CK, of you just tell people the importance, man, of just hard work and perseverance and not letting people tell you that you can't achieve something. Because I know, just coming up, you were kind of rough around the edges. You're a hockey player. And then you and Numi got out there every day, and TK and those guys, and they turned you into an all-star third baseman, man, after people said you couldn't play defense. I always respected that about you. And it was just fun to watch you mature into a all-star and gold glove third baseman, man. So if you could just talk to people about, not let people squash their dreams and their aspirations, and just talk about the perseverance and stuff that you went through. And I know you had a concussion and stuff when you went to Milwaukee, but just all the things you overcame, man. I think they'd like to get in on that a little bit.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Jock. And I think the biggest thing with that is sometimes we get too focused on the results, where the true beauty of the whole deal is the process. And so for whatever reason, I was focused on process. And my goal every day was just to get a little bit better. And anytime I made a mistake and embarrassed myself, the way I viewed it was, hey, you know what, that just gives me something to work on the next day. And that gives me something to be a little better the next day. So for whatever reason, I wasn't focused on the results. I was just focusing being on the best player that I could be. Yep. And so, because if I was focused on the results and if I was focused on the player that I actually was, I would have had a very short-lived career because I was terrible. And I would have beat myself up. And there's one thing to be able to handle embarrassment and being the worst player on the field. And the way I was able to handle that was like, hey, that's fine. I might be the worst player on the field, but I know I could work. And I know I could get better. And that's kind of what my focus was the whole time.
Good. Okay.
Jock, I know you got to go, but I thought about something when you said that, because that's usually people are result oriented. So
yeah.
I don't usually hear that here. Is that because baseball, you fail 7.5 times out of 10? So it's natural that you have to enjoy the process differently than a basketball or a football player would?
Yes, because like you said, the best players fail 7 times out of 10. The best players fell 7 times out of 10. Like some, whatever, 27%, some 25, some. But you know what I mean. But it's the guys who can bounce back and have short-term memory and are trusting the process and trusting their work and trusting the things that they do and do well. and to shore up their weaknesses as well. But it's the guys like I'm telling you, man. Corey used to walk around hair disheveled, man. Like, you know, this I don't care look on his face. He'd
Right.
strike out. You know what I'm saying? But you never know. You know what I mean? Tori was the same way. He'd strike out, make outs. Like, but they always had that attitude of, man, okay, you got me, but I'm gonna get you the next time. And then you get me again, I'm gonna get you the next time. Right? You never saw those guys moping around because they knew that at some point they were gonna get you. Right.
Right.
And I think that's what's allowed that's what allowed those guys to be successful as players, and now into business. It's allowed them to be successful in business because, like, they got told no, they got told, you know, they weren't very good. They got told you got to get better. So they heard no a lot. So going into business, you hear no, right? But then you still persevere because you're like, okay, you can say no, but somebody else might say yes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just think that just being in a failure based
underdog.
Failure based profession allowed these guys to become who they were as players and people and businessmen.
Well, and to piggyback off of Jock, you know, the data's out there. No matter what field you're in, and typically the higher somebody, you see it in corporate America a lot, is you know, and you see it in academia, you know, even more, is, you know, these guys work towards a degree on their wall. And so they get that degree on their wall, they've met their goals, and their learning has stopped. And versus, you know, a lifelong learner. I've been in many scenarios in which I've been sitting across the table from guys who graduated from MIT, got their PhDs, and they have they check all the boxes for quote unquote smartness. But, you know, I tell them, you said, guys, you know, the one thing where I will beat you is at some point I will be better than you because I will continue to learn. You know, you're resting on your laurels of your PhD or your master's on the wall there, and you've stopped learning 15 years ago, and everything's going to pass you by. And so you see a lot of that, you know, especially, you know, the higher the achiever, the more the focus they get on the results of their achievement, right, and the more that drives them. And so they become very externally motivated versus internally motivated. And like, you know, Jock mentioned Tori, you know, the year after he signed his big contract, you know, the dude hit 212, but you would have never knew it. He was the same guy. And so there's something to be said about people who are internally motivated. Those guys will sneak on you because, you know what, they're driven by a different bella, and you might beat them now, but over the course of time, they're going to beat you more times than not because they're focused on the process.
Yeah, phenomenal. All right, Jock, I appreciate it, man. Hit them straight, bro. Remember, it's hit for dough and putt for show, or putt for show, or however it goes.
Drive for show, putt for dough.
Yeah, there you go.
Michael,
Corey,
thank you, man. Corey, it was great to see you.
Good to see you, bud. Good to see you, bud.
Okay.
Appreciate you, man. Much love.
Okay, Michael. See ya.
Yeah, man. We'll talk soon.
All right.
So, you know, to that point, it's interesting. I just posted something this morning on social media, which I have a tendency to do a lot, about the fact that I got cut 4 times growing up, twice in baseball and twice in basketball. And I made the team the next year each time. And the last time in baseball, I batted 380 my senior year. And so now, after coaching 31 years, I had to have a conversation last night for an hour with a player who thinks that she deserves to be on the floor and doesn't understand the big picture, you know, and the grind. You know, we're old school, so we understand the grind. And so I'm just curious, back to my first question about, you know, sort of volleyball and ice hockey. Is that where you learned about the process? Because, you know, you played multiple sports, and so did I. And I think back in the day when you played multiple sports, it taught you so much, you know, about how to carry it over to other things, not just life, but, you know, in sport. So to talk about that part, I know you've talked about it before, but I'm intrigued by that based on what Jock just asked you.
You know, it's kind of the age old question.
Nature versus nurture, you mean?
Yeah. And if I look at the way I was raised, and it has all to go about, what kind of stories are you telling yourself, and what kind of stories are you allowed to live? My parents growing up, my dad basically, didn't graduate from high school, was born and raised, and I was born and raised on a farm, and we were born with very little. And the one thing that my parents ingrained in me is, nothing is given. You need to earn everything you get. And so, just because you show up doesn't mean that you deserve, kind of, quote unquote, to play. And you can be, and the reality of it is, in that situation, you can be either, you have a choice to make. You can be either a cancer or a catalyst. And, I don't know how being a cancer in that situation and feeling sorry for yourself is going to help you get what you want. Because, there's, are you willing to do what it takes to get what you want? If you want to play, does feeling sorry for yourself give you the tools and give you what you need to get you on the court? And though it might not be what you want, feeling sorry for yourself isn't going to help you get what you get what you want to get. And so, for whatever reason, my parents never allowed me the luxury of kind of feeling sorry for myself. And so that's kind of the biggest thing with that is, and it boils down to kind of that mindset. And it's all about, my parents, knew very little about sports, but what they taught me was, the bigger lessons on that is, is why we play sports.
Yeah.
To learn how to deal with failure and go for it. And so I don't know if that answered your question, but these, I'm seeing now, because I've coached 110 youth teams, and we're in such an immediate gratification society. And if the kids don't get what they want, the parents are going to end up, starting a new club team, going on another club team. They're not giving our kids the ability to kind of deal with that. And how do you process through that? And how do you become the player that you want to become?
So one of the things that's interesting about your path is that you went to a community college, and so did I. And so I think it's important that people understand that there's a lot of different ways to get to where you're trying to go, right? From starting on a farm to starting with volleyball, another sport, hockey, and then doing a 180 and pivoting, and then boom, baseball at a community college. And I started at a community college before I ended up playing against NBA players and finishing my career. What did you learn from the community college, and what can you tell people about, you don't always have to go D1 to start, your journey. It can start at a different level.
If you can play and if you're good, they're going to find you. And you got to be in front of the right person at the right time in the right place. And so that's, if it's meant to be, it's going to be. My main sport, my main love was hockey. My best sport was volleyball, and baseball was a sport I played to pass the time in between seasons. I loved hockey. I wanted to be a hockey player. I actually got a full ride offer to go to University of Minnesota Duluth as a hockey player. I was a goalie. And the reason I didn't go is because I didn't write my SATs. Because in Canada, we didn't have to write SATs. And, long story really short, is basically I got a phone call in the beginning of August, and the Bulldogs goalie just signed with the Devils, and they watched me the year before, and they're like, you know what, we want to offer you a full ride to come down and play here. And I'm like, absolutely. And so filled out all the paperwork, didn't write my SAT. They called me, didn't write my SAT score. They called me and said, Corey, you forgot your SAT score. I'm like, my essay, what? I didn't write no SAT, because I was in the process of going to university, and, I didn't know I had a chance to play college hockey at that time.
Right.
And they said, well, let's see what we can do. And so they tried to get a waiver from the NCAA. They said no. And so they said, well, Corey, you can come down here and practice with the team, but you're going to be in the you gotta play go to junior college here, and we can't give any scholarship money towards junior college. you know, and
Wow.
at that time, junior college was what, like, you know, might have been $9,000-$10,000, but my dad made, you know, $17,000 a year.
Right.
So I'm like, you know what, I can't do that. And then the guy said, you know what, no problem. Go play junior hockey and we'll come back and get you. We'll come get you at Christmas. And so I'm like, so I was all in. I was going to go at Christmas to go play Division I hockey. You know,
Wow.
the assistant coach came up, watched one of our preseason tournaments, didn't like what he saw, said, you know what, we're not interested anymore. And so that
Wow.
was my hockey deal. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to play the rest of the year. And because I got one offer, I'm going to get other offers. Played the rest of the year. And what ended up happening, it was my backup goalie ended up getting picked up by another team in the playoffs. And I was like, you know, this is just crazy. I'm tired of the politics of hockey. So now I'm going to go play volleyball. So then I committed to the University of Manitoba to play volleyball the following year. And I had a full ride to play volleyball. And then out of the blue, a hockey or a baseball coach from Boone, Iowa started calling me every day. And he said, hey, you know what? Do you want to come play baseball in Boone, Iowa? And I was like, you know what? Thanks, Mr. Smith, but no, I'm playing volleyball. I got a full ride offer. I'm playing volleyball at the University of Manitoba. And he was like, volleyball? He goes, men don't play no volleyball. You playing with those women?
Oh my God.
Like, no, actually, men do play volleyball here in Canada. But anyways, this coach called me every freaking day for 3.5 weeks. And he goes, have you changed your mind on that volleyball yet? Have you changed your mind on that volleyball yet? And after probably about 3.5 weeks of it, so kind of, you know, July-ish, or, you know, mid-August, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go try play this baseball. Because I played volleyball every day since I was in the 8th grade. I played hockey pretty much every day. And baseball, I haven't played at all. So let's go try to see what this looks like.
Wow.
And so I went to the Steinbach Credit Union. Me and my parents with the Steinbach Credit Union. I took out a student loan, went down to Boone, Iowa.
Wow. Let
Yeah.
that breathe for a second. Wow,
Yeah.
and now you know the rest of the story.
Yeah. Well, but I get down to Boone and I walk onto the camp the first day, and literally there's 90 players there. And I'm like, what the hell did I just decide? I'm like, you know what? There's all these guys. I don't know where I fit in. I'm playing America's pastime. I was like, this is what a decision. What a bad decision I made. And I said, you know what? I'll be fine, because you know what? This coach called me every day. So I'm a quote unquote, you know, I was wanted by this coach. And so as I'm going around talking to all these guys, freaking John Smith is a coach, Coach Smitty. He called every one of these freaking guys every day. And I'm like, great. Now what do I do? Now where do I fit in? And I went home that night. I remember kind of crying. I'm like, dude, what did I do? I made such a bad mistake. I'm going home. I'm done. And my mom was like, you know what? Let's give it another day. I'm like, all right, I can do that. And so I gave it another day. And then I noticed a guy kind of in the outfield, and he was wearing an M hat. And then that M hat was a Manitoba hat.
Wow.
And so I walked up to him. I'm like, hey, you got an M hat there. I said, where'd you get that? He goes, well, I traded it with some guy from Manitoba. I said, where are you from? And he said, I'm from Nova Scotia. And I happen to have I had a Nova Scotia hat on. And I said, oh, really? You traded from some guy from Nova Scotia? I said, do you know who this CF is? And he goes, that's me. I'm Curtis Falls. And I'm like, dude, do you have CK under your hat? And he's like, yep. And I look and I'm like, you know what? I said, this is too weird. I said, I'm staying.
Wow, that's wild, bro.
Yeah. And so we happened to be there was a baseball tournament in like Saskatchewan, and a national baseball tournament. And one of the things we do at the end of the tournament is you trade hats with random people.
Wow.
And he was a guy that I traded hats with.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so we ended up staying. We ended up being roommates. And I ended up that year making the second team junior college All-American as a DH or third base. I can't remember if I was third base All-American or DH for Division I junior college.
Wow.
And so I ended up mailing, because I didn't want to go back to Boone, Iowa, and I mailed out probably, hundreds of letters to all these schools talking about my, my hockey, my volleyball, and my baseball.
Wow.
And I didn't get one response.
How'd your roommate do?
He did well too.
Wow.
And so, kind of, a tale kind of in that year, they found I had a tumor on my shin.
Wow.
And so I had to get this tumor removed. It was a benign tumor that I got removed in January
Before
of
the
that year.
season.
Or sorry, June. So I played all year
after
with
the season.
with this tumor. And
Wow.
June 1st, I got this tumor removed. And that year was the Canada Games. And I tried out the year before for Team Manitoba, and I made it. But then we had I had this tumor deal that was 16. It was about a 16-week rehab, because after I saw the, literally took a huge divot out of my shin.
Wow.
And the Western Canada, the Canada Games was the first week of August. And so literally I had 10 weeks to get better for a 12 to 16 week rehab deal.
Wow.
And so I had this surgery. I talked to the coaches. They were trying to make a decision to keep me on the roster. And they made the decision because I started to play early. It healed really quick.
Wow.
And then the doctor was goes, I don't know what to tell you. At week 6, he goes, it's good enough to start to walk on.
Wow.
And he said I was 5 weeks ahead of kind of schedule on this deal, because literally there was so little bone left there. It was almost a space between, it's almost like they cut my bone in half and took out a 3-inch or 4-inch kind of gap. The gap was like this on my shin. And this looked like a huge divot. And he goes, you know what? It's filled in enough. I think you could start to walk on it. And so I started to walk, started to move around a little bit. And when the coaches saw that, they're like, hey, you know what? Corey's enough of an impact player. We're willing to take a chance on him that he can play, because they're making a decision. They're going to bring in another guy. And if they didn't bring in this other guy, my baseball, it was over my path. But anyways, for, God obviously had his hand on my healing, because, I got good enough to be able to play.
Right.
And so literally, it was almost at week 11 is when I got full clearance to play. And so basically I had a week of baseball
whatever.
and went and played at the Canada Games. And it's there that the NBI saw me, and they offered me a full ride to go to Canada to Vancouver to play for this National Baseball Institute. And Curtis went there too. So me and Curtis were roommates in Vancouver also.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's where that's where I got drafted. I just remember the first time when I was over there and I was throwing, they moved me to third base. And the coach said, Coach John Hart was like, they were calling me Karina because they said I threw like a girl. And I know nowadays that could be somewhat offensive, but literally I threw with my right foot forward.
Wow.
And they said, he said I threw like a girl. And so they literally taught me how to throw. I was 19 years old at the time, 20, just turning 20 at the time. And they were teaching me how to throw. And so, I learned how to throw. I could always hit. And that's, I ended up getting drafted out of the NBI.
Wow, I've never heard that story before. That is, including the benign tumor. And were you afraid your planting and cutting and speed was going to take a hit because your leg was compromised, or was that never a concern?
The whole saying, naivety is a bliss. Holds true. And we're not in the world of internet. We're not in the world of Google search. We're not in all that world. This is my little world. and how I felt and what we did. Like when I remember when I was like, because I had like, they thought I had like literally like 8 weeks of shin splints.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they're like, you know what? We need to get CT scan unit. Came to Boone, Iowa, and I remember going in the back of a trailer, getting
Wow.
the CT scan, and then getting the phone call from the doctor saying, yeah, you know, you have what they call as an osteostema, which is a benign tumor on your shin. And I just remember getting like real flush and thinking I was going to pass out, because as soon as you hear the word tumor,
Yeah.
you think you have cancer. And here I'm in Boone, Iowa, by myself,
Oh.
and just freaking out. I'm like, dude, I got cancer. And I'm like, is that cancer? He's like, no, we think it's benign. And so I'm like, well, you don't really know. And so,
Wow.
you know, I went back for Christmas, got set up with a surgeon, and set up the surgery for
Wow.
when I got back home.
Man, fascinating. So you get drafted, and I'm always curious about, you know, people's major league debuts and like, could you believe at the time, thinking back on it, like it happened so fast, and like you went from one sport to another sport to a third sport, and you know, you're playing in front of, like, you know, America's pastime, like you just said. Like, did you take it all in, or were you just trying to, you know, like you said, enjoy the journey, and like, were you blown away? Like, could you believe it?
Well, so when I got drafted, I had a chance to play on the Canadian national team. So I've always wanted to play for the Canadian national team, and like I wanted to play for Team Canada in hockey, and I
Of
never got
course.
to do that. So I had the opportunity to potentially play for Team Canada, and so my scout really talked me into taking a chance and playing minor league baseball.
Wow.
And so I got my $7,000, or no, sorry, $3,600, which was $7,000 Canadian at the time. And that was my signing bonus, and they shipped me off to Elizabethton, Tennessee.
Wow.
And you know, and I hit like $120 there. It was trying to learn how to play every day, trying to do all that stuff. You know, not catching anything. Like I was terrible defensively at third base, and that was one thing. But at that time, it was at the time when Major League ball teams only were allowed like 26 work visas, and because I was Canadian, I took up one of those work visas. So you have to perform or you're out, because I was going
Right.
against Dominicans, Venezuelans,
Right.
you know,
Wow.
Mexicans, you know, Korean, South Korea, Japanese, like Australians, and they were only allowed 26 in the whole organization. And so I remember showing up to spring training that year, coming out of, you know, what was a terrible initial professional experience, and that was a year of the strike, and it was like '94, where the Major League Baseball had their strike, and they were having like scabs across line. It was
Right.
And so Tom Kelly, who was a Major League manager at the time,
Yep.
worked down at our spring training a lot. Was down there, and at that time I had a you know, a glove that literally I had since I was like 8 years old. It was an Easton softball glove that I got my dad got for me from Canadian Tire.
Wow.
And so
Whose autograph was on the inside? Didn't they always have the autograph?
maybe
Like Dave
Candy
Winfield or something?
no, maybe Candy Maldonado or something like
Wow.
that. And so I had this glove, and the leather was so bad that it basically was like having a piece of paper on your hand, and that was the only thing separating from the ball. So because my glove was so bad, I bruised my hand really
Right.
badly,
Yeah.
and I couldn't play. And so you know, when we first get down to spring training, you know, it was overwhelming. And there was like, I walk in, there's like 200 people, and you just imagine, like, literally you're a Canadian dude that literally has had, you know, the whole, like, from Anola, Manitoba, where basically 99.6% of the population is white, and you're a farming community, and all of a sudden you go from there into Fort Myers, Florida, which is an absolute melting pot. You have, you know, the Dominicans over there, the Venezuelans there.
Wow.
You know, you got a couple of guys from Japan there. You got a couple of guys from Mexico. You know, there might be one other Canadian. You got the Australians and you got the Americans separated, and you got the white Americans there. You got the black Americans over there. And it's all these different groups. And I'm like, where the hell do I fit into this? And literally
Wow.
there's probably, between, 200 and 400 of these people. And then I go to my first, camp, and I'm watching around, and I'm freaking booting balls over the place. I'm watching these guys hit freaking home runs all over the place. And it was literally embarrassing. I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing here? And I got my Canadian Tire glove. And guys were like literally guys were laughing at me because I had like these old Converse. People, they're like, who's this white Canadian dude? Because like the Dominicans had better equipment than me. So I hurt my hand. But in that moment, I'm like, you know what? It was so overwhelming. I made my decision right there. I said, you know what? These guys are all better than me. That's fine. You know what? I'm just going to go out and try to be a little bit every day. Kind of talk to Jock's point, is I'm going to try to get a little bit better every day. And if I don't make it because I'm not good enough, that's fine. As long as I do what I can control and just get a little bit better every day. And so I'm doing that. And I try to go to the cage, but the cage is full because at the 9 o'clock or the 8 o'clock bus, that's when everybody got on the bus. There was an earlier bus at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then there's a 9 o'clock bus, and everybody went on the 9 o'clock buses, and all the top rounders got first priority at the cages. And if you're a younger guy or you're bottom round, like, you just don't get the cage. And so when I hurt my hand, I had to go and get treatment on my hand. And I was one of like 4 people on this early bus. And when I got there, I realized there was nobody in the cages. And so
Wow.
I would go and I would, when my hand got to the point after about 5 days of treatment, I could start to hit and start to do this stuff. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stay on the early bus because that's the only time I can get in a cage and have access to all the cages. And so I would go there early and I would hit. And there was one coach that was standing over there, would sit on his bucket. He was always there when I showed up. And he was like 3 cages over. And I would go there, and after about a week of kind of doing this, getting there early and hitting, he went over and he goes, hey, would you mind if I work with you? And I was like, absolutely. And this coach was the minor league hitting coordinator for the Twins, Jim Dwyer. Wow. And he was the first guy to teach me about timing of a swing. He goes, you got to get your hands back. Cause I was just like here, like I was like just slap it, because that's
right.
And I couldn't keep up to the velocity because I was rushing everything. And he taught me, the timing of the swing to get prepared to hit. And all of a sudden I just started to rake, and that just clicked. Wow. And that was, but it was because I got hurt, and because I recognized, hey, this is the time I get to go to the cage. And if I didn't get hurt at that time, I would have never saw that, because I would have never figured out to get there early, because I just went with the flow, went with everybody else. And then I just remember, so I'm back playing again, and I'm starting to hit, and I'm starting to like bop it. And all of a sudden I'm starting to make some noise. And I guess there's people, then TK would come over, Tom Kelly, who would come and watch me. And then he saw my glove, and he goes, he goes, what the hell? What do we got here? He goes, we got a guy out here. We got a professional baseball player playing with a softball glove from, where's this thing from? And TK is really loud. And he goes, you know what, son? And the Rawlings truck was there. He goes, you know what, son? Go there and get yourself a new glove.
Wow.
And so I went to the Rawlings truck, and I go on and say, hey, you know what? I was sent over here by Mr. Kelly. And he said, get it. And he said he goes, here, get a new glove. And the guy goes, what's your name? And I'm like, it's Corey Koskie. He goes, and he pulls it, flipping the Corey Koskie. He goes, yeah. He goes, no, you're not on our list. You can't get a glove. I'm like, but he goes, I don't care what anybody told you. You're not getting a glove from us. I'm like, okay. Another super embarrassing part, because literally the trailer is full. Imagine a semi, kind of a cross between a semi trailer and a pull behind trailer,
right? Full
of gloves, full of ball players, all grabbing their gloves and like just snickering, like laughing at me. And I walk out of there with my kind of tail between the legs, and they're not, I can't get it. So I went and played. 2 days later, TK comes over. He goes, son, come over here. And TK is really loud. And like when TK, you're like, oh, great, here I go. You're like, literally the whole complex is going to hear him.
Well, and then the
Uh,
fact that he's noticing this out of everything he could be watching, he notices
Yep.
such a nuance, like a
Yep.
detail like that.
Yeah. And so I go over there and he's like, son, come over here. And he's like, son, I told you to get a new glove. He goes, where's your new glove? And I'm like, they didn't give me one. He's like, what do you mean they didn't give you one? I said, yeah, they wouldn't give me one. And it's like, okay. And all of a sudden he takes off.
He was pissed.
He did. So then all of a sudden I hear TK, and like I said, TK's, like literally 2 fields over, and he's walking away from the this Rawlings truck. And he had a very kind of passive aggressive way to deal with people. And so as he's walking away, he's literally screaming on the top of his lungs. He goes, these freaking guys are coming to the campus, giving guys here who are never going to spend a day in the big leagues, these gloves, and he can't even give a big league manager a glove. What kind of BS thing or organization is running here? These freaking guys are never going to touch a day on the field in the big leagues.
Wow.
And and a big league manager can't even get a glove from these guys. And I was like, what the hell is going on over there? And, and TK, like, this wore this guy out. And about 15 minutes later, Larry Corrigan comes over, who was a minor league field coordinator at the time, comes over to me, goes, hey, Corey, go get yourself a baseball glove. And he's like, I said, Mr. Corrigan, they're not going to give me a baseball glove. He goes, son, go get yourself a damn glove before TK comes back over here. And I'm like, but he goes, there's no buts, go get your glove. I'm like, okay. So I walk over there, and literally it's the same kind of scenario. I'm like, oh, here we go. I'm gonna freaking embarrassed again. The guy sings, I just remember the guy looking at me like, you effing, like, and I said, hey, I'm Corey Koskie. He goes, I know who you are. Pick out a glove. And I'm like, just you mean I can pick out any glove? He goes, just pick out a damn glove and get out of here. And so I went and picked out the glove. And so I grabbed the glove and I said, sir, how much do I owe you for this? Like, this was all free gloves. And I said, how much do I owe you for this glove? And he looks at me, goes, how much money you got? And I said, well, I think I have like $82. Goes, go get me your money. Go give me your $82. So I ran into the clubhouse, grabbed my $82, and I might have been the only guy who's ever paid for a glove on a minor league field. And so I gave him the $82, and I got myself my first baseball glove.
What a story. Oh my God. That is wild.
Yeah. And literally it was magic. Like, I didn't know that you can actually catch a ball without hurting your hand. And so, and then that year I went to Fort Wayne, and I turned myself into from a suspect to a prospect. And fast forward like 10 years talking to my scout, he goes, Corey, he goes, you don't know how close you were to being cut. Like, there's 2 guys that stood up for you. It was Larry Corrigan and Terry Ryan, because everybody else wanted to cut you. And the reason they kept you is because when you were in Elizabethton, it was raining outside, pouring rain, and you were out there taking ground balls, and they couldn't bring you in. They liked that. That was the only reason they didn't cut me. They said, you know what, let's give this kid another shot.
Wow.
So yeah.
What a story. I've never read that. That's incredible. And like you said, to Jock's point, and for all of you listening out there who either have gotten cut or, really don't understand what true work ethic is, I think that sums it up right there.
Yeah, it is. And that's it. And the one thing that I'm proud of is
that what your sons know that about you? Your 4 sons? Like, do they, or is it just we're living in a new era?
No, it is at the end of it. But the thing that really, I remember I was on a Twins caravan, and Terry Ryan, after my 3rd year in the big leagues, and I actually started to perform and started to become like one of the top third basemen in the in the at least American League. We're on a caravan, and Terry Ryan said to the group of people, and he goes, in all my years in professional sports, he goes, the one guy that has worked the hardest at his craft was and he pointed to me. He goes,
Wow.
Corey really worked to turn himself into a high quality baseball. And that made a lot for me because you know what? Terry was the one who really stood up for me at times. Like literally he had my career in his hands.
Yeah, and he saw a lot of baseball players in his day, so he
Yeah.
he wasn't feeding you a load of manure.
Yeah. And so that's kind of, so kind of, you know, and so as we kind of evolved through that, I went from, low A to high A
Yeah,
to
that's
double
amazing.
A to triple A, and then triple A onto the big leagues. But yeah, but you have that same moment in time when I get to my first big league camp. And the big league camp was really difficult because TK. So we talk about those loud, boisterous TK. And there's certain ways, and TK had a reputation of just burying rookies. And for whatever reason, I was the guy that TK this would wear out, and it was tough to take. So for whatever reason, I don't know if he saw something in me or there's something he didn't like about me. But I remember Scott Stahovia got at a urinal one time, said, he goes, dude, I don't know what you did to him, but I'm so thankful you are here because now I'm not the butt of everything. And so it was hard. And I was terrible. Like when I went to my first big league camp, like I was so nervous, so scared. I couldn't catch a ground ball. I played maybe 3 defensive innings and, I had 3 balls hit to me and I made 3 errors. I remember when we were at Charlotte, Port Charlotte, playing against the Rangers at the time, and a ball was hit to me and it deflected off of my glove to the shortstop, and Guzzi threw him out by like literally 15 feet. And I was walking into the clubhouse. Gardy and Scotty Alger were dying laughing. They said they've never seen a ball go
Share him
into
so fast.
yeah, they've never seen a ball go into a glove at 87 miles and leave a glove at 120 miles an hour.
And it wasn't the yips, right? Like Steve Sachs. It was just more nerves.
Yeah, I was just so
Man.
afraid of failure, so afraid of
Yeah.
making, and I was so afraid of TK like yelling at me, embarrassing me. And I had a moment, and it wasn't and the thing that turned it around for me it was my second year at big league camp, and I think it was the 98 Olympics when Team Canada was in Nagano, and they played against the Czechs in the semifinal game. And I went to bed at literally 5 o'clock in the afternoon so I could wake up for the 2 o'clock game. And I ended up sleeping through it. But I got to the park the next day, and the coach, Terry Crowley, said to me, goes, just be a man. Take it, don't answer this yes, no, but be a man. And I'm like, okay, what's happening here?
Right.
And this is the point where literally I would get nauseous and sick before every one of our team meetings, our morning meetings, because I was going to get the butt of the jokes. And literally I was in the bathroom like sick, like just straight blowing out and freaking throwing up because I thought that, here we go again.
Wow.
And so I'm like, what's going to happen? You try to blow it off and try to be cool. And literally TK comes out, we're talking the morning meeting, it's over. And then one of the coaches said, oh, TK, don't you have anything about a hockey game? And he goes, oh yeah. He's like, Corey, I heard there was a hockey game last night. How did Canada do? And I'm like, well, they lost. They lost in a shootout. He goes, how was that game? I said, yeah, it was good. They lost in a shootout. He goes, did you watch that game? And like, now I'm like, okay, well, yes, I did. I was sleeping. I woke up, watched it a little bit, but then fell back asleep. I went to bed at 5 o'clock to watch the game. But I'm like, and I'm going like, hey, like Terry Crowley said, like, keep it short. Yes, no. And I'm like, well, like, yes. Because you're telling me you stayed up till 2 o'clock in the morning to watch a hockey game. I'm like, well, no. Because what do you mean? And he said, well, he goes, were you up? Yes or no? I was like, well, yes, I kind of was no. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, and so now I'm like panicking.
Right.
because I'm like, okay, what do I do? Or do I try to explain it, or do I just say yes or no? You know, Terry Crowley, who's my coach, he's got my back. He said, just keep it short. And I'm like, well, yes, because I was kind of up, but I was up and sleeping, and I went to bed at 5, so I kind of was up. And then TK just went off on the whole team and literally started screaming at the coaches, started screaming at the players. And he's like, we got kids in this freaking camp. He goes, I can't sleep. I can't stay up past 6 o'clock. And we got guys staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning to watch a hockey game that's in a big league camp. We're not working our guys hard enough.
Oh,
You
boy.
coaches aren't doing your jobs.
Oh, shit.
Just screamed at everybody. And I was ready to grab my stuff and say, you know what? I'm done. Because all freaking eyes were on me. And I could just see, you freaking idiot. Like, we got like Bob Tukes, like these freaking
Oh,
old
man.
guys, like these guys are pissed. And they're running and we're working hard. And so I remember going to the bathroom literally, well, like I was on the verge of crying. I'm a 23-year-old man,
Right.
like on the verge of crying right now because I'm like everybody hates me. And it was in that moment, like you talk like this, and this is a thing that I really would like your listeners, like you don't know what people are going through at the time.
Right.
And it could be the simplest thing that somebody says to you that can like help you like basically get off the bridge. And like I have all this stuff going through my head, and literally I'm like, freaking, I'm done. Like, this is, what am I doing here? I just embarrassed myself. And Chuck Knobloch
Wow.
comes
Second
up to me.
base.
Yeah. And you know, Chuck's like, you look at like Chuck's the like, you talk about all the guys of the Twins history, like he wasn't liked, and everybody says how much of a goofball he was. But for whatever, in that moment, Chuck Knobloch, he never said a word to me before that. Comes up to me, and I'm in the bathroom, and like I'm just like, and he comes up, he goes, "Hey Corey," because you're fine, it'll be okay, brother. And Chuck had this mantra to him, and like he was very unapproachable. And I'm like, hey, I said, hey man, I really appreciate that. And it kind of picked me up in that moment. Like literally Chuck Knobloch came over to me and said that, hey, you know, you'll be okay. And he hasn't talked to any other guy. And then as I'm walking out of the clubhouse, I hear Terry Crowley, Crow, going to the other coaches. What the F is that kid thinking? What kind of effing answers were those? And as I'm walking by, I'm like, I did exactly what you told me. And you just freaking threw me under the bus against, I mean, you know what? In that moment, I'm like, you know what? F you. I'm thinking, F you, F all. You guys don't care about me. You guys don't care. All you care about is yourself. And that was kind of a turning point in my career, because I'm like, I was so afraid because I didn't want to let anybody else down. But when the freaking rubber hit the road, these guys didn't care about me at all. And that was my realization moment that it's going to be me. And if I'm going to make it to the big leagues, if I'm going to do what I need to do, it's going to be me. And basically, I took my game to a whole nother level, because I was like, you know, F everybody. You know what? This is me. And you know what? And I ended up making it all the way in. I was one of the last cuts to that season. And I ended up went to AAA, and I raked that year, and I got called up in September. I hit like 330. But wow. You know what? You still had the moments. I had to build out of that, because literally these were, you know, I had PTSD moments from like literally these 2 years of being absolutely embarrassed in front of all these guys. What's kind of interesting, Chuck Knobloch, for all his bad that he's been labeled to, and all, you know, they talk about a bad teammate. It was after that moment, he would come up to me and say, hey, Corey, here's what I saw. Hey, what are the, like, and I would be able to ask him questions.
Wow.
So I have no idea why I was like one of the only rookies like that the dude would ever talk to, and would kind of say, because you know what, at the end of the day, maybe he saw the way I was working on kind of doing the stuff, and maybe he thought that was unjustified, and maybe he didn't like TK, because I heard before he got traded, he opened the door and like hit TK's door like 50 times. But it was, yeah, like, but they kind of go to
Interesting.
the point is there's these moments like you don't know what people are going through.
Well, from your mom telling you to wait one more day to Chuck Knobloch coming into the throne and telling you it's going to be okay, brother. That's, man, wow, that's incredible. Um, I don't know how much time you have, but you just sort of touched on mental health, and there's different aspects of mental health, right? Just being mentally tough versus mental health, which is what we have seen recently, most recently with DJ Twitch taking
Yeah,
his own life. I've had 6 dads. 2 of my dads have taken their lives.
yeah.
And so, mental health is a thing. And so you went through a lot of mental challenges, after your concussion, which you thought it was, speaking of benign, you thought it was a benign concussion. You're going to be back. And 2.5 years later, you're an unmitigated disaster. Nobody can figure out what's going on. And so talk about sort of the lows of that and how that chiropractor sort of changed your life.
There's an attack on men in our society. Toxic masculinity is real, but the way that it's presented is not real.
Right.
Toxic masculinity for me is the little voice on your shoulder telling you that you're not good enough, you're a failure. That's
Or you're
that.
weak.
Yep, that is ingrained in every man's DNA. We are taught to take care, or I don't know if we're taught, but it's in our core of who we are. Is a man wants to be a protector. They want to take care of their wife. They want to protect. They're naturally inclined to be that person. And we have a whole world that's telling us that that's not the right way to think. So men are having a lot of difficulties finding their place in this new world. And you think about it, here's the reality of the world we live in as men. There's 3 people in this world that are being taught that to be loved, without, not loved undeniable, but loved
Unconditionally.
unconditionally. Women, dogs, pets, and kids. And you think about it, men's love is conditional. And this has taken a toll on a lot of men. We look at suicide rates. Who's more likely to commit suicide? A man's more likely to commit suicide. Who's more likely to be in jail? A man's more likely to be in jail. Who's more likely to do worse in school? A man's more likely to do worse in school. Who's more likely to have trouble, with drugs, alcohol? You can go down, and it's the lack of support for men in this, because men are very internal. I'm at the age of where we're seeing a lot of divorces with our network of people. And I just find it somewhat interesting, because a majority of the divorces men have been having affairs on their wives. But there's a few of them where the wife has had an affair on the husband. And it's very interesting to see the dynamics of how the friend groups handle this. Like, literally, when a husband has an affair on their wife, the whole community of this woman's network wrap around this girl. They have slumber parties. They're anti-man, and they're gonna take care of their woman. And literally, a dude's wife cheats on him, and literally, the guys are having a beer, and the guy says it, and it's like, "Oh man, that sucks," and the dudes don't want to talk about it. And so they have to learn to internalize, and this is the battle that every man faces, coupled with the fact of a majority of men. And I realize I'm talking in generalities here, because I'm not, obviously there's outliers in it, but if a man is true to who he wants to be and true to everything, well, he wants to take care of the family. He's going to takes care of the kids, provide that. So he spends all this time and focus on taking care of his family. And I would tell women in our, in my lives and my employees, stuff like that. I said, take a look at your husband. if he doesn't have friends and if he's not going to do stuff, you are his only friend. So don't take that lightly. And so you got to figure a way to build them up, because you're the only one that's building them up, because the whole world is telling them what they're feeling is and who they want to be is wrong. And so you're starting to see suicide rates going up. And, you know, it's a battle. Like, that demon hits everybody. I believe that at some point in everybody's life, that demon is going to be very powerful, and that word in your ear is going to say, you know what, you're useless. Nobody's going to miss you. This ended right now. And it's a matter of having a network of people that you can share that with.
Yeah.
And
And
men just
normalizing mental health too. And just like you said, making groups where men can talk to each other, and especially in, you know, the Black and brown community, it's the numbers that you mentioned earlier are even higher.
yeah, well, here's the reality of this is, in my group of men, friends, you know, we go and, like, I hardly hear guys talk bad about their wives. You know, there might be your guy out there that talks about other women or whatever, it's just whatever. But I very hardly hear guys like, you know what, my wife sucks, and, you know, she does this, she does that, blah, 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 all this stuff like that. And I find it interesting that women, they'll joke on their husband all the time about the stuff that you can't do. And it's just,
Right.
you know, and the joke is amongst my guy friends is like, hell, I can't do anything right at home anyway. And then you multiply that in the Black and brown community. And when you have a, you know, from a societal standpoint, like, you know, I told, you know, Tori this, like, you know, we talk, you know, me and Tori talk, like, have had many deep conversations about, like, just, you know, just understanding when we kind of go on the whole George Floyd. And, you know, I'm lucky enough to have people that I would consider like family in my network
Brothers.
that I could have like honest questions, ask honest questions about. And the one thing that Tori said that I found that was super, like, kind of opened my eyes to this. And he talked about, you know, his son getting to school, and how he goes, you know, why does my son have lower standards to get into school? He goes, what kind of messaging is that to my son, that you're not smart enough to get into school? And after, like, you know, Tori has a complete, you know, is it lift? And I'm like, you know what? That's, you know, I look like, let's talk about Tori Hunter for a second. Where
He went through a lot of stuff, not only just mental health maybe, but just racial stuff.
Well, but here's the thing that I just love about Tori. Like, when Tori, like, I've been with Tori since freaking his beginning, and when he came out of Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and his whole world was around gangster, like, he was like, the first time his first at bat, he threw his bat over the backstop because he struck out. Like,
Wow, I didn't know that.
you know, and jumping on Tori when he's running to grab a gun because he got in a fight with a dude in a bar. And you watch him evolve as a man and how he has that growth mindset. And now Tori in business, it's so cool, because when I talk to Tori, you know, I was a little ahead of him in business, because literally I bought my companies, I had my Planet Fitnesses, and having you know, a conversation with Tori about business is like, he didn't understand. But now I call him and I just listen to how he's talking. Like, this is a guy that I would go to for business advice, because the guy has learned, and he's smarter than me, and he's freaking so cool to watch him grow and evolve. But when you have a whole society, and he talked about, like, this is how aware he is, like, look, what kind of message is to my son when my grandkids, you know, get into school at lower standards? And I'm like, dude, I agree, because literally, you know, you're smarter than me. And so you look at this message, like, there's this battle going on for kind of the heart of a man. Yeah, but the one thing I'm lucky and I'm blessed with is just be able to have the group of, like, you know, you Jock, Eddie, LaTroy, Tori, Justin, that, like, these are my brother. Like, this is my family. And, you know, where I could feel like I have that thing to be able to talk to them about anything and everything.
That's awesome. All right, let me ask you a couple rapid fire questions, the fun
All
part,
right.
and then I'll leave the stage for you. Bob Euchre or Harry Carey?
Bob Euchre.
Yeah, you have a story about Bob, don't you? A
Yeah,
few?
yeah. So Bob was in Milwaukee, and it was he's what a fun guy. What a fun guy.
Favorite hockey player of all time?
Wayne Gretzky.
You have a favorite baseball player of all time?
Gosh, I got many. Growing up was Tony Fernandez.
Wow.
Yeah, Tony
Haven't heard
Fernandez.
that one before.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Tony Fernandez, Devon White, Kelly Gruber were kind of the guys that I watched. Were just
Wow.
loved them. But playing, like literally, like Barry Bonds to me is the
Yeah.
best hitter I've ever seen in my life.
Crazy.
He is unbelievable. But like, I can go Manny Ramirez, Joe Mauer, Justin,
Wow.
like I've been lucky enough
Yeah.
to be around, and then like from a pitcher standpoint, like Brad Radke. These
Yeah.
guys are just phenomenal guys. Complete side note, the best guys to play behind was Brad Radke and Yohan Santana,
Wow.
because they were the guys who never made excuses. And if I made a mistake, like Yohan would be, hey brother, you are right here. I'm going to get you another ground ball right here. I'm going to pitch this guy inside. I'm like, Yohan, no, go someplace else. I don't think I can catch it right now. But he would be like just to exude confidence in me. So like this playing behind guys like that was super cool.
Should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame?
I don't know. But statistically, absolutely. But I just don't know enough. I don't know enough about that whole story.
We had Bob Nightingale on the show, and
Yeah.
he said his line of demarcation is after baseball changed the rules on steroids. Those guys before then, if they did stuff and it wasn't in the rule book, then that's fair game. But after that, I think it was 2004, those guys he will not vote for. What are your thoughts on those guys? Because Barry's included, and there are others. Roger.
I don't care how much steroids you have. Hitting a freaking baseball is hard.
Right.
And you can pump all the steroids you want in me. Like I'm not going to be able to do what Barry Bonds did. Like that, and then that's
You mean getting intentional walks when the bases are loaded?
like
Yeah.
literally, you knew when Barry stepped up, he was going to have a quality at bat.
Crazy.
And so that's kind of what I struggle with. So I understand his point and all that, but as a person who played the game in that, like literally, like there's a lot of guys who took steroids that did not do what Barry Bonds did.
You have a favorite you have a favorite mascot?
Oh, obviously the Philly Fanatic.
Absolutely. Is there a rule in baseball right now that you would change?
Yeah, I have the strike zone stuff.
Yeah.
That's the reason why that's the reason the game is so long now.
Yeah.
Because when I played the game, the strike zone was more horizontal, and so the umps would open up a zone. Like hell, we would play speed up pitches. I mean speed up rules. Like if we were on a getaway game, if you didn't swing at the first pitch and put the ball in play, you would get kangaroo court and you would get fined.
Can you believe what Verlander did this year?
Oh gosh, it's amazing. I just if we're talking about just his ability to pitch at his age.
Well, I come back from Tommy John, like what the?
Yeah,
he's like an alien.
Guys, yeah, there's so many. There's guys that just amazing.
So wait, Verlander, Roger, or Pedro?
Well, I faced Pedro. I faced Roger. I don't know how much I faced Verlander. I can't remember facing Verlander. But Pedro was phenomenal. And the thing the thing I like about Pedro is he would be able to threw the same pitch multiple different speeds. Like he had two speeds on his curveball. His changeup was pretty consistent from a pitch speed standpoint. And he would have multiple speeds on his fastball, multiple speeds on his slider. It just is phenomenal.
Okay, a couple more. Most underrated pitcher you ever faced?
Damascus Marte.
Wow.
That dude, I couldn't hit that dude. It just he was my kryptonite.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh, dude, I have no idea.
Okay, we'll pass that one then, unless you want to come back to it. So if you could have let's say 3 people at your dinner table, past or present, dead or alive, but you've never met them before. What three people would be at your dinner table for Christmas?
Well, I would have Jesus Christ.
Popular answer.
Um,
Yep.
Yeah.
Don't say Adam and Eve because we want to, get a little more interesting than it.
Yeah. I don't. It's just.
Well, I usually
people
ask
that-
5, but I didn't know if you had an
Well,
interest
even
of
to
time.
lock it into, to lock it into 5. There's just so many people that you're just like, you have, you can go on both ends of the spectrum.
Would your answer have changed before George Floyd or after, the pandemic? Do you think? Because I know you've been very
No.
outspoken about some things with, the pandemic and stuff. No. wouldn't
Yeah. Maybe Jesus Christ and Fauci, because
change? Haven't had Fauci before.
yeah, you ask Fauci a question, and then you go to Jesus, and you're like, "Hey, is he lying, or is this real?"
How much did he get paid for this one? Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah,
Good Lord.
yeah.
Okay, so Fauci.
So
Jesus.
yeah.
Oh, well, that's brilliant.
And there's so many fascinating people through the course of the world, and I just can't. Elon Musk would be, but the thing with it is
Is he doing enough with his platform to change the world the way that he could?
I don't know. That's a
Yeah.
TBD.
Yeah,
But
guess.
Elon Musk would be an interesting one.
What about Joe Rogan?
Joe Rogan is another interesting one. Even Vladimir Putin.
Wow.
George Bush. The Clinton. There's all these guys that are just.
We're working our way
fast-
towards 10 people, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
So skip the 5.
To be able to have that much influence and
Yeah.
the command of a room is just, if we look at through the history, one thing from a leadership standpoint, you look at what Jesus Christ did with 12 disciples and how he impacted the world. Fascinating to me. I met Bill Clinton one time in passing, the way that he was able to captivate a room. There's these guys who and heck, Obama, whether you agree with the politics or don't agree with the politics, the way that these guys were able to captivate rooms. And and if you want to talk about a room captivator, Derek Jeter fascinated me. And, I played against him, and Derek Jeter just had something about him that, it's Derek Jeter.
He had it.
Yeah, you can't. I remember the first time Prince Fielder went to his first All-Star game. And hang on one second, turn that down. Prince Fielder went to his first All-Star game. I said, wait till you meet Derek Jeter. There's something about Jeter that, the dude is just the way he carries himself. He's just a cool dude. And he comes back. Prince came back. He goes, Corey, I got to tell you a story. He goes, Derek Jeter came up to me and goes, hey, Prince, congratulations. Hey, and Prince was like, well, oh, thanks, Mr. Jeter.
Wow.
And so after Jeter left, Prince Fielder's stepdad, he's like, man, he goes, is it hot in this room or what? but here's the thing to kind of emphasize Jeter. And so when I had my concussion, I was at the game for 2.5 years. I went up to Toronto, played for Team Canada. Hey, all these guys, hey, Corey, good to see you. And they're kind of looking like there was no eye contact. There's nothing genuine about it. And there's like, hey, Corey, good to see you. How you doing? And then I get in an elevator going up the room, and Jeter got in an elevator with me. He looks at me, he goes, hey, Corey. He's like, hey, great to see you. Hey, how's your concussion? How you feeling? And I got off the elevator, and I'm like, here we have an iconic player in New York. And there was multiple people in the elevator at that time. And he went on, he looked me and looked me in the eye, spent literally maybe 3 minutes of an interaction, and made me feel like I was the most important person to him in that moment.
Wow.
And I was just fascinated by that. Literally, he asked me about my concussion when literally nobody else did. And it's just, you see certain people like that who are iconic people that literally they make icon and they make you feel like, hey, you're important to me right now. And that's kind of the separator with like people like, that's one thing like I noticed about, when with Bill Clinton, like literally, like you were the only person in the room at that moment. So I just find that somewhat fascinating.
Yeah. I don't know. I've had someone answer Hitler. I don't know if I'd want Hitler or Putin in the room, but I guess there's something to be said if you had them with like an MLK, and just sit down and pick their brain, even though it's sick, but in some way it'd be sort of interesting, I guess. And
And I did think about Hitler because if you have Jesus Christ and a Hitler in the same room, that'd be an interesting interaction.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, with his son by his side.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, anything else you want to, we've been in about 35 countries. We've had a lot of MLB players on, NFL. Great discussion. I would love to have you back if you'd like to come back. I'm sure there's a lot more we could talk about, but glad you're feeling better. I think you're doing some amazing things, personally and professionally, and continue good health and success to you. But anything you want to leave the stage with, it's all yours.
No, well, I obviously appreciate the time. And if there was, one thing that I could leave is, one person shared with me kind of when I was going through a tough time is they talked about how Satan goes around like a roaring lion looking for people to devour. And what he said to me is, he goes, Corey, watch how lions hunt in the wilderness and how they hunt wildebeest. He goes, what the wildebeest do is they put they're weak, they're sick, they're old in the middle of the pack, and they put the strong around them. And what the lion tries to do is pull the weak out
From the middle.
and get out of the middle and get them one-on-one, because they know that when they have a weak or somebody who's young or somebody who's sick by themselves, they can devour them. And so what he said to me, he goes, the biggest lie out there is thinking that we can handle this by ourselves. And that's a lie from Satan, because Satan is trying to get us out there by ourselves. And when you're going through the most difficult time, there's nothing wrong with surrounding yourself with people of faith and can help build you up and support you, because even great men of the Bible like Moses during the battle had somebody hold the staff, because as soon as the staff dropped, the battle would go against the Israelites. So he had somebody help hold his arm up. And so that's one thing, if I can have some provide some encouragement to your listeners, especially on the mental health side. Don't believe the lie that you can do this on your own. Reach out and talk to somebody, and whether it's a buddy, and be truthful and say, hey man, I'm just going through some time, let's talk through this a little bit, and find that support system. If I can just leave you guys with that. And then, for all the youth athletes out there, at the end of the day, it's about the process.
Right.
Don't worry about the results. Just work on every day again a little bit better.
Great way to finish the show. And remember, everybody, you can always dial 988 24/7, 365, and there are crisis counselors there for you if you want to talk to a stranger and just let them know you're having a tough day and you're thinking of ending your life. Please call 988 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Corey, can't thank you enough. Thanks to Jock Jones for popping in here for a quick minute. And, anything I can do for you, I always offer that. And I always stay in touch with my guests, all 160 of them. And you'll be no different if that's okay with you. And much love to you. Happy holidays to you and your family.
Cool. Thanks.
And
you too.
Truly appreciate it. All right. Take care. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Former Major League Baseball, Gold Glover, Corey Koskie joining us here in the Sports Deli, where everyone deserves a seat at the table, especially CK, C Money, former Minnesota Twin, and so honored that he joined us here today and spent so much time with us. And happy holidays to all of you. And again, don't fight it alone. Reach out to someone, reach out and call 988 if you're having a hard day, like I said before. And until next time, hope you enjoyed it. Much love. Peace. Hey everyone, here are today's outtakes with Corey Koskie.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, Corey?
How are you?
Good, man.
Good.
On the road, huh?
Yes, I am. Gonna go. How does this? Is this? Do you usually do with video?
Yeah, I usually do video, but if I don't do it today, there's always a first. It's all good.
Well, we have, I'm about 15 minutes away from a spot where I'm going to stop. Or it might be a little close, probably 10 minutes away.
Yeah, we can
So-
wait. It's all good if you want to wait. And
Or you can start, we can, I don't know how long are your podcasts usually?
yeah, we can go as long as you want, bro. It's all good. I've gone 30 minutes. I've gone 75. So it's all up to you, man. You're the show.
Well, it's your call here. We can,
Yeah, we can
maybe-
start. We can start,
we
and then
can-
we'll
we can- we can
just
start
add the
and-
video later. Yeah.
start and evolve. So cool.
All right, sounds good. I'm gonna do a quick intro, and then we'll chop it up, man. I got a lot to ask you. So looking forward to it.
Cool.
Boy, that was phenomenal. Great job and much love to everyone. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for joining us. Remember, Black Lives Matter. Stop the bullying. Stop the Asian hate. Contact your local and state politicians for any inequalities, for any individual or any group that's being marginalized. Also, everyone, we want to raise awareness for those individuals that are currently imprisoned for non-violent offenses, in particular those with long-term sentences that are disproportionate, in particular to those people in the Black and brown community. And I want to send a shout out to 40tons.co. 40 Tons is a socially conscious cannabis brand, and they're a social enterprise using the regulated cannabis industry to fight injustice, in particular for cannabis prisoners. So check them out again at 40, the number 4, the number 0, tons, plural, 40tons.co, because what they're doing in the cannabis space and being a socially conscious company is truly incredible, and they have my full support. And also wanted to remind all of you, if you're having a tough time, you can always call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and that number is 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. And now you can call 988. That's it. All you got to do is dial 988 from any phone. And they are available 24/7, 365 days. And if you want to follow me on social media or check out other episodes of this amazing Sports Deli podcast or any of my other podcasts, go to my link tree at linktree/Mike Hootner. And if you'd like to support us at the Sports Deli, we'd love to have you either make a one-time donation or feel free to make a donation monthly, either 99 cents a month, $4.99 a month, or $9.99 a month. If you have questions about that, send me an email again to thesportsdeli@gmail.com, and I will send you the link on how you can do that. You can also find it at the bottom of every podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Link at the bottom to support the show. Please check out our website at thesportsdelipodcast.com. Make sure that we continue the conversations with regards to 3 strikes and you're out and mandatory minimums, especially people that are in jail for non-violent offenses. So those things need to change. And remember, gents and ladies, please remember to do your monthly self-breast examinations. And remember, guys, this afflicts about 1,500 men annually, with about a third of those resulting in death. So we want to make sure that we do our monthly self-breast examinations, both men and women. And guys, remember to do your self-testicular examinations every month as well. Until next time, remember, it takes a village. I'm Hootie Hoot. This has been a production of Hootie Hoot Productions. Thank you for joining us in the Sports Deli, where everyone deserves a seat at the table. Remember, it takes a village. Much love, everybody.